Okay, welcome in today. We're going to be talking about the Investment Optimizer. You're here with the Money Insights team. My name is Christian Allen, and I'm here with my partners, Rod Zbrisky, Ben Lonsdale. How are you guys?
Great. Glad to get into this. Exciting.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Should be fun. I'm excited about it too. So like I said, we're going to be talking about the Investment Optimizer. And before I get into anything else, let me just do a quick overview of what it is and some of the benefits or the purpose behind it. So the biggest thing the Investment Optimizer does is it enhances cash flow investing. The people that we work with generally are people who are active investors, people who have money that they're utilizing out there in the world, and our job then is to come in and make it more efficient, to optimize the investing that they're already doing. We're going to do it, and it's going to be completely tax-free. So we're going to get into the vehicle that we're using here in a few minutes, but ultimately that tax-free growth can be incredibly valuable. Again, especially if you're a high-income earner, we want to try to keep taxes on our side at every chance possible. Preserve liquidity, that's really important, right? So when we put money somewhere, it's obviously important if we're going to be cash flow investing that we have it available to us. Inside of this vehicle, the Investment Optimizer is always going to be completely liquid and available to use at any moment. It's also going to protect your money. There's several ways that it'll do this, but we're not going to be investing in the market, right? Because this is an opportunity fund, it's important that the money's actually there. So we're going to stay away from the market. We're going to be in a vehicle that's incredibly safe, and ultimately we'll just protect money not only from downside risk of the market, but also from creditors. From that standpoint, it's another powerful tool. And then finally, we're going to create value in multiple places at the same time using the same dollar. And that may sound a little bit funny, but when we get into the numbers, you'll understand it, and I think it'll be pretty exciting. Okay, that said, let's go into the vehicle.
So what we're using here is dividend-paying whole life insurance that we max overfund. So we're building a whole life insurance policy that is as efficient as possible for the cash flow investor so they can use this for their capital or for your opportunity fund to place money into this and then to be able to access that money for investments.
And if you're someone who's heard about whole life insurance in the past and maybe has an idea for what it is, chances are this is very different than what you've heard because we build them in a very specific way to optimize what we're doing. And so ultimately this is very different than what most people are familiar with as it relates to whole life insurance.
So that max overfunded part becomes really important. And I think for a lot of people, they wonder kind of what does that mean? Ultimately, what we're saying there is we're going to minimize cost, right? So when we purchase and use this vehicle, while there's going to be other value in form of death benefit, that's not our first priority. So that overfunded component becomes really critical because we want to keep our cost as low as possible and our cash as strong as we can. And by overfunding it the right way, we ultimately can do that and create a significant return.
So when we do fund it, the capital within the policy is actually growing. And it grows between 5 to 6%. And that capital as it grows is actually tax-free, which is unique to life insurance, something that the government has actually allowed whole life insurance holders to enjoy. So it's a great benefit for these policies. Because these policies have been around for so long, the ones that we use have been around for over 100 years, paying a very safe and predictable return. You can count on it being there. You know that capital is going to be there when you need to make an investment.
I won't say the name of the company, but one of the companies that we use has been around since 1847 and paying dividends every year since I think 1851.
1849.
I was close. Anyway, it's pretty crazy, like pretty significant. These companies have been around for a long time. They have huge amounts of capital, and we're able to utilize that to keep our money safe.
Yeah, great point, Christian. And so we have that liquidity, and then one of the great things is we go ahead and we use the capital from these companies, from their coffers, and we use that money to do our investments while our capital stays within the policy, growing compounded with actually a lot of side benefits as well besides that growth. One of those which is the death benefit. So you still, of course, because it is life insurance, you still have a death benefit for that legacy for your beneficiaries. And then also in every one of our policies, we have a long-term care component that we can get into when we meet with you.
So let's talk about how the strategy works. We've talked about the policy, talked really high level as to how some of the benefits work. Now let's get into just how it all comes together. So you have money, you're going to use it to go out and invest. And right now you may be using your savings account or money market account for your opportunity fund. We're going to suggest that using this max overfunded whole life policy is going to be much more advantageous than that. So to begin with, we capitalize the policy. So that's what this bucket represents. We talked about how it grows predictably over time. Well, the two things that create that growth, number one is the 4% guaranteed interest rate, and number two is the dividend. And the dividend is not guaranteed, but like Christian said, we're working with companies who have consistently paid a dividend for 170 years in some cases, and so it ends up being quite predictable. We see pretty consistent growth inside the cash value over time. So now we have our policy becomes our opportunity fund. And we have this large amount of cash, the general account of the insurance company that we now have access to. We can take a loan from there to use for our cash flow investing. And then as our investments generate cash flowing off of it, we're going to funnel that back into the strategy, regenerate our opportunity fund so we can go back out and do it again, and we'll do it again and again. One of the most powerful pieces of this is that there's a separation between the two. Our opportunity fund, this cash value of the life insurance policy, stays there, continues to grow, even while on the other side we're using loans against it to generate the value inside of our investments. And so we just continue to see that cash value grow and grow over time.
Okay, so let's review the key benefits to leveraging a policy. First, we have that tax-free growth within the policy. So the capital within there is going to be compounding, and that compounded growth is tax-free. Second, you're going to be creating value in more than one place. So you're going to have it within the policy as it's growing, and then you're going to have the value that you have placed within the investment that's driving a cash flow back to you. And then third, there's an arbitrage between the compounded interest within the policy and then the simple interest that you pay on the loan from the insurance company.
And I think a lot of people understand the difference between compound and simple. And in this context, when we put it together and you actually see the difference, I think you'll see that there's an enormous difference between what happens. And I think the best way to do it is just put some numbers to it. So let's say that we take a $100,000 loan against our policy that we go out and invest. And we're just going to set it up to where the payback on that is amortized over 20 years. We're paying a little over $8,000 a year to pay that back. By the end of the 20 years, we would have paid a little over $60,000 total in interest on the loan. At the same time, we have the $100,000 that's inside of our cash value that's growing and compounding over the same 20-year time frame, and it will have earned $165,000 in interest. So we put the two together, and not only are we generating more value inside the compounding, but a lot more that we're earning versus what we're paying in it.
This point, I think, is super critical. Ultimately, what we're saying here is that as a cash flow investor, by utilizing the policy, I could have $105,000 more than I would have without it. And that's pretty significant, right? Because as we continue to grow our wealth, we continue to invest, those numbers get larger and larger, and that compounding component becomes even more significant. So this is just a really critical point. Okay, let's talk about the key takeaways really quickly. We've hit on the fact that it's tax-free. The money is incredibly safe and predictable. We talked about the 4% interest rate and the incredibly long-standing predictable dividend. We talked briefly about how it's creditor protected. And again, for the clients that we generally talk to who have money, this becomes really important, right? Like the more money that we get, the bigger the target on our backs becomes. And so to the extent that we can protect money from creditors becomes really, really a huge deal. It's incredibly powerful when used with cash flow investing. And that's where the arbitrage comes up. That's where the using it in two places at once comes together. But ultimately, the investment optimizer's primary objective is to create more money than I would have had otherwise. And then finally, we just want to hit on really quickly that it can be really valuable as a retirement income vehicle. And basically, the way that I use this is the same way that I use it for investing, only at that stage, I'm not going to pay it back. We can get into that when we talk to you one-on-one. Okay, thanks for spending time with us today to talk about the Investment Optimizer. This has been the Money Insights team. We'd love to talk with you. If you think this can be valuable for you, reach out to us, click the button below, and we'll look forward to talking. Thanks again.